one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Kathy, when you have time, roll call.
Trustee Roberts.
Here.
Trustee Grabowski.
Here.
Trustee Bergen. Here. Trustee Rhodey.
Yep.
Trustee Bell. Here. Trustee Krasovich.
Yes.
President Knutson.
Here. Okay, public hearings, we have none. I'm going to skip down before we approve the minutes and citizen comments. And I'd like to go to resolutions. A resolution and possible action on resolution 2023-12, a resolution recognizing the retirement of David Meyer from the Public Works Department. Resolution recognizing the retirement of David Meyer from the Public Works Department. Whereas David Meyer began his employment with the Village of Pewaukee on July 28, 1980 as a Public Works crew member, and whereas David Meyer dedicated service to the Village of Pewaukee has included snow plowing miles of village alleys and parking lots during all hours of the day, planting of village street trees, placing and removal of holiday street flags, election day assistance at polling locations, interior and exterior building maintenance of all village hall, police department and Department of Public Works buildings, maintaining grounds and assisting in burials at the Forest Hill Cemetery, and clearing countless loads of lake weeds from Pewaukee Lake Beach. Now therefore, be it resolved that the village board of the Village of Pewaukee, Waukesha County, Wisconsin, hereby extend their heartfelt appreciation for the dedication demonstrated by David Meyer during his 43 years of employment with the Village of Pewaukee and wishes him an enjoyable and well-earned retirement. Thank you very much. If you would like to say something, David, you're more than welcome to. If you'd like to say something,
Do you have a speech?
I try all my years there and memorable times. Thank you.
I will look for a motion to approve Resolution 2023-12.
Motion, Rhodey?
Second, Krasovich.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion or comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Resolution is hereby adopted. Thank you very much, David, for all your years of everything you've done.
We already miss you.
Okay.
Yes.
Item 3 is approval of minutes of previous meetings. First one dated June 20th, 2023. I will look for a motion. Are there any questions or comments as it relates to the way the minutes are presented this evening? If not, I'll look for a motion to approve as presented.
Robert's motions to approve the village board meeting minutes of June 20th.
Second, Krasovich.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are hereby adopted. Second minutes are the regular village board meeting dated July 18th, 2023. Again, any questions, comments, corrections? That's the way they are presented this evening.
One slight correction.
Yes.
Mark Bloom did not attend that meeting. His presence is always felt, but he was not there, okay?
Like a pebble in your shoe.
Or something.
Or something.
Okay, then I'll look for a motion to approve with the correction.
Motion to approve with correction, Rhodey?
Robert second.
Discussion, comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Regular village board meeting, July 18th, are hereby approved. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for citizens to share their opinions with board members on any topic they choose. However, due to Wisconsin open meeting laws, the board is not able to answer questions or respond to your comments. All comments should be directed to the board. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Speakers are asked to please use the podium and state their name and address for the record. Is there anyone in the room that would like to make a comment as far as anything? Yes, miss. Whoop, be careful.
Yeah, it's Sue, right? Janet Apps, 901 Ridgeway Drive, Pewaukee, with Village of. Okay, my comment is that we were all really excited to see something happening over at the nursing home, which is down the street from me and my husband. And I guess what we'd like to be informed is, and I know you can't answer my question, so I'm just giving you information. As a neighborhood, we really would like to be informed as what are the next steps? What can we look forward to? How long will it take to, say, get rid of big piles? I did talk to the one of the construction guys, and he said that the stone that they ground up, which was really the building, is all going to be reused, which is nice. And I assume the dirt will be too. But is it going to progress this year to the point where we guess that's what we need to be informed about? Is it going to progress far enough that we won't have these mounds all winter long? And if we do, we do, but it would be nice to be informed. And I think we know generally from looking at other construction sites and how they've progressed, how it goes, and it's not going to happen overnight. And so I think that would be the only thing we were looking forward to. So thank you.
Okay. Okay, are there any other questions or comments?
Could I do a 30-second response to that?
Yes, you are in the audience, you can do it.
So,
Come up to the mic, sir.
I found out this morning that a contractor was planning to go in and do some sewer work this morning, which we didn't even know about. We had a pre-construction conference several weeks ago, but they did not give us a schedule. And so there's some stuff that's happened there that we didn't even know the schedule. I sent out an email at the end of the day to all of the parties involved there and said that I wanted them to discontinue all significant work until we were presented with a schedule at a minimum of their grading and utility work for what's going on out there, because I don't even have a schedule. And R.A. Smith, who's our consultant doing the inspection out there for public improvements, nobody has a schedule. So there's been a couple of surprises there. So I just sent that out today because I know there's been inquiries to what's going on there. So I hope to know quickly, if not tomorrow. And then everybody will know what their schedule is. I know that they've got issues. They have to bring in a lot of fill, and they don't have the fill. They can't find a site that's where they can borrow fill from to build up their site. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Is there anyone else that would like to make a comment or question?
I'm Dan Deneen. I live on 412 Sunset Drive, and I've been trying to I've got a hold of somebody earlier, but now I'm not hearing back. And my question is, they've dug a place right below my property, in the nursing home property, for a retention pond. And the water, they must have dug deep enough. They hit water. And I'm just wondering, who is responsible for that? For upkeep, maintenance, that kind of stuff. Who's going to be responsible for that?
We'll get you an answer.
I called Craig this time. I talked to him early on this, but I did call and left a message, but I didn't hear back.
Yeah, talk to Scott and we're following up on it.
So just briefly, sir, the stormwater pond is the responsibility of the property owner, of the developer, ultimately the association there. That's not a public piece of infrastructure. That's their responsibility to maintain.
So it could be nobody taking care of it.
Well, there is language in a development agreement that gives the village the authority to do the work if they don't,
Okay.
and then assess it back against the property owners that
Okay.
benefited from it.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else? If not, then we'll move right on. Thank you. Item 5 are ordinances, discussion and possible action on ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance to amend section 18-112 regarding the sale of food and food products. Cassie?
Okay, so the ordinance in front of you is just kind of more maintenance, I guess, on the first page, under the first section, and then the second section we're asking to be changed, that gives the authority to the clerk to approve the food vendor license, to prevent holding anybody up, I guess, kind of, when they need one. Any questions?
Any questions or comments from the board?
I think,
I've got one.
Yes.
So it's funny that this came up on this one because actually I was eventually planning on bringing it to the board about doing away with our food vendor license, because I just think it's an added step that is not necessary for, as Trustee Rhodey, I believe, brought up before about nonprofit events and special events and such. My question on this one is, by giving the clerk the authority to approve, does that allow special event permit holders to come and submit their own list for food vendors, or is this still something that we're requiring each food vendor to come in and apply for individually?
I think it's still each food vendor to come in. So if you're selling
Right.
ice or popcorn and Kiwanis is selling burgers, they each have to come in. Just like as a consumer.
Yeah, I have a major issue with this ordinance. I know I don't know how this factors into approving this and then trying to amend it later. But I think this ordinance is useless. I think, especially for special events. And if anyone here has put on special events, I love the fact that we're taking one step away from it having to go to the village board for a 30-day, that they have to get in 30 days prior, because with special events, a lot of times it's very fluid, and especially with food vendors who are very difficult to work with, things change the day before. So I appreciate that we've shortened that period, so I'm all for that aspect of it, but in general, I'd like to see this go away, especially for nonprofit special events.
Go ahead.
Okay. So Jim, somewhat agree with what you're saying. I guess I look at it this two different ways, okay? As I think an ordinance is required. Otherwise, for instance, we'll end up with 10 vendors down on the beach.
No, I'm talking about during special events.
Okay, yeah.
So
I guess I'm looking at, so there's two pieces I'm looking at it. The first part that we're looking at is in regard to allowing Cassie to filter these through without having to come to the board, which I agree with, okay? And then the next item on the agenda, which has to do with the community nonprofits versus for-profit.
Right, and I may have blended the two. In general, yeah, okay. I can hold my comment then until that portion of it, because there should be some delineation there.
I agree. I just was going to say that I thought it was fantastic that we were taking this step away, and I'll make a motion to approve the changes as presented.
Do I have a second? We have a motion to approve as presented.
I'll second.
Let me ask a question if I can.
Yes, go right ahead.
Under what conditions would a food vendor be denied the permit?
Yeah, obviously if they don't fill it out all the way, or if there was a red flag, or if we had problems with them prior, something like
But again, like
that.
a bartender's license, if somebody has an OWI, they can be, there's a event that happens that they can be denied. Does that apply here? Like if they had the health department closed them down or something? I mean, are there conditions like that they would actually not get it?
So I guess, Mark, you might have to help me out with that. We don't require that they prove that they have all the the permits and certificates and such, just that they're signing and notarizing their signature that they do, and are gonna comply. Because I don't know all the food, statutes and all that, type stuff, that's not my
Yeah, so we
area.
don't do like a background check the way we do with some of these other ones. It's just a matter of they fill out a form, they pay a fee, and
As long as they fill it out completely and we don't have prior problems or, concerns, I guess.
And that's where my concern was coming in, is that they already get a state certification and inspections and everything else, so ours is just basically, I don't even know the right adjective to put on that, but frivolous, I guess, especially when they're part of a larger event. So they've already been inspected, they already have to display theirs, they already, their certifications and their food safety approval, they're liable for all unsuspected inspections and everything else like that. And we're just basically adding another layer to take a fee on top of it. And it does upset a lot of food vendors. I can tell you firsthand, it upsets many food vendors that these special events work with. This will alleviate some of it, because they would get upset if they got turned down because they came in a week prior and it had to be 2 weeks prior in order to get on our agenda. So that helps a little bit, but just in general, a lot of them are very salty, unintended, about having to come in and pay another fee when they already pay state ones to be able to sell throughout the entire state.
So for the purpose of tonight's discussion, are we tabling the whether or not it should exist at all?
no, there's a
No, that's-
motion and a second already.
Yeah, I guess that.
I was just getting clarification. That's,
And it can be tweaked and everything and adjusted when the next discussion comes up regarding profit, nonprofit, but just some background on it.
Can I just clarify? So special events, and if we don't have a permit, how does that stop somebody else from just putting a stand on the corner of the special event that's not part of the event? Does the event still have to submit a list of their food vendors that are going to be there as part of their permit?
I think they submit like a premise, so like we
Okay,
know
of where everyone's gonna
where
be.
they're gonna be. So if somebody was outside that,
Then we would know at that point that
then I guess
that they don't
police
belong as part
department-
of the event and should have had a separate permit because they're not part of the actual event. Okay.
Any other comments? This still would require a 5-day notification before they're approved, correct? That you would have to get the paperwork.
Oh, yeah, I
days
think we
before?
have it as 30 days. I mean, just so that we have time to review it and it's not like, hey, I need this tomorrow. I mean, we could make it whatever. Yeah, not less than 30 days before.
This is where I'm coming in with, I know I want to hold up to the nonprofit, profit, whatever. I think this is, it very much handcuffs a lot of these organizers of special events, especially when someone cancels at the last minute and they need to get someone in there, because if you're doing a special event with some of the other nonprofits that require per your agreement that you have to provide food, then what happens when your food provider cancels 3 days prior and you have to scramble to get something else in there? And now we're back to that 30-day window or whatever window, but your special event agreement with whatever nonprofit requires you to serve food.
Yeah, I think we could look at shortening the time frame, but we can't have it be day of. Because what if Jenna and Cassie are not in the office? We need some
We can't-
reasonable lead time.
I'm fine with something, but not 30 days.
And if it's posted on the application, say it's 14 days prior, they have that out, they should be reading that application to see what all the requirements are. And we know from all the different right-of-way permits and other permits that people don't read. That's not our fault, that's.
I guess what the question is, what is the reason for this ordinance if you're not doing background checks and inspections of their license or anything else? Literally, what does this?
My understanding is consumer protection, so that when you go down and let's say you got corn and I just decide I want to sell corn and everybody gets sick, then, so this kind of protects us to say, well, they got a permit, they signed off, they said they had all the, necessary requirements. I don't know. That's kind of my take on it, unless Mark has something else.
But what I'm saying is, if this is under an event, because we don't allow food trucks in the village. That's
Unless it's
already,
a special event.
so that's already a separate ordinance unless it's a special event. So now when it's falling in a special event, that organizer has to carry a minimum amount of insurance. They already have an agreement with the village, and so they're already covered from a liability standpoint. Why are we putting this other bureaucratic level of approval in place?
Are we allowed to talk about this tonight, since it's not a part of the
It's part of
agenda?
the approval process.
Well, the agenda spoke of a specific change that's noted in the packet, so I'm just clarifying as to
The
whether.
ordinance is before you, so, if you want to get into some of that, that's fine, but I think if you're talking about repealing it, that's probably a bridge too far for tonight.
And I have a motion to approve as presented, and I have a second.
I mean, I think for tonight, let's focus on the task at hand, which is to give Cassie, authority to take care of these, but I think some points are well made, and I think it does deserve another more holistic look at this, but I don't think we're going to solve that tonight.
No, it was a discussion.
Okay. Then I will look for a motion to approve as presented.
It already
I mean, I won't say
And a second.
motion.
You got a
We
second.
You just
we
need a
have the
vote.
motion. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. The other item is resolution. Discussion and possible action on resolution 2023-13. A resolution to amend the village fee scheduling regarding food vendor permits. Again, Cassie?
Yep, in the past, it was brought up that maybe we need to amend the fee based on profit, nonprofit, and that, so that's why I have it on there, so you guys can discuss it.
Okay, and I was the one that brought that up, okay? My concern is that, and I am speaking of community nonprofits. I'm not talking about generally nonprofits from all over southeastern Wisconsin. Community nonprofits, the Positively Pewaukee, the food pantry, all of those that might do certain things, we're treating them the same way as we are treating for-profit vendors coming in from the outside. And we are charging them $40 for these activities. Fire auxiliary is another one. They sell corn, they get hit for a $40 charge, same as somebody that would come in selling corn. At Park and Rec, quite honestly, we do treat community nonprofits differently than what we treat for-profit operations. And we do charge differently. I noticed in the cover letter here, it says the village discuss whether the village board would like to subsidize nonprofit license fees. The question I have, if we're subsidizing, that would mean there's additional cost to us processing these licenses. And I guess help me understand that over and above our fixed costs of having people in the office.
Well, it's more just, if it costs us $40 to complete the process, which why would they get charged separately or differently from a nonprofit if it takes us the same amount of time? I think is the.
So the rule is that you can, when you're charging a fee, the fee has to be directly related to your actual cost of providing the service. And so it doesn't matter if it's a nonprofit locally or, a for-profit from Minnesota, it probably costs you the same amount to do either license. So in essence, you're giving a break to the bottom line of the nonprofit, the local nonprofit, by doing what's proposed. And that's really the question is, does the general populace of the village want to give that break and not collect that fee for those local nonprofits?
Okay. Well, then I would ask the question, there are some items in here where we're charging $5 or $10, and I look at the amount of time that it probably takes us to process versus what we do for our food license, and I question where the $40 charge is coming then.
Yeah, especially now that we don't have to take it to the board. it's going to be a more streamlined process, I suppose, now that you've approved, where there's not, I guess, that extra. But.
So that would mean the fee is going down for everyone.
Or, hear me out,
Yeah.
if It is involved, if it is a food vendor at a special event of a nonprofit, community nonprofit organization, they are allowed to submit a list of the potential vendors that will be there, and there's no fee. And there's no involvement from the board or from the staff. There's no cost incurred. And so we pass 0 through and make it more advantageous for these nonprofits who already struggle to put on these events.
Would we be able to do that legally?
Not to charge a fee?
Just
For the community
for the
nonprofit.
community nonprofits?
My own view is the state law clearly says that you're supposed to be charging a fee based upon your actual cost of doing it. It doesn't provide any stratification of that or other kind of adjustment to it based upon whether they're a local resident or not. Now, do you do it in other circumstances? Yes. And if you decide that you want to do it, you know, I doubt that you're going to get a whole lot of pushback from it. But technically, that's what the law states. The whole point of fees is to cover the village's cost in providing the service. And in that regard, I don't think it matters who the actual applicant is.
I would also be curious on this one because I've heard from multiple food vendors that we're one of the few communities in the area that do have a license and a fee for them to participate in special events. So if at the very least, I would love to table this one.
I can tell you that's not true, at least with a couple other communities that I represent that require that you
I said
have.
all. I
Yeah,
said-
all right. Well, I'm just saying, in the county, there are others that do charge. So, and it's for basically a transient merchant permit.
Which we have.
Yeah, so in other communities require that any vendor at those events have to get a transient merchant permit. And so there is a fee associated with that, just for the record.
All right, I have a motion to table this subject. Do I have a
I
second?
didn't make an official motion and said I would be willing to motion to, you don't screw it. Sorry, pardon my language. I motion to table this until we can explore it further based upon what other surrounding municipalities have for their scheduled fees.
I second that, but I want to add to that, that I'd also like to have an estimate of what that's going to mean as far as reduced revenue to the village.
Well, it shouldn't be revenue because we just do a pass-through cost.
But in our budget,
Okay,
there
it's
is a
still
line
a-
item for fees, permits.
Fee revenue that comes into the budget. Because we're charging a fee, we recognize that as revenue in the budget.
So then our expenses should also be lowered.
No, it's just reallocation of staff time. Less staff time spent on processing those permit applications. So we're getting other things done by not spending, but we're losing revenue by not charging that fee.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, this topic is hereby tabled. Item 7 is old business. We have none. Item 8, new business discussion, possible action to release an existing pedestrian easement in effect at 321 Riverside Drive. The applicant property owner is 321 Riverside, 321 Partners LLC, NCO Christian Helvenka. Scott, do you want to handle this? or-
Sure. Included in the packet is a copy of a release of recorded easement related to pedestrian easement from when the original subdivision was platted. As you're aware, that subdivision was never developed as platted. The River Hills Nursing Home was developed over that platted subdivision. Why, we don't know. That was mid-1960s, so I can only hazardously surmise. But with the development going forward at this time, this easement was discovered, and the request was made to release the recorded easement. The Plan Commission reviewed that at its meeting last month now, with a recommendation to release the easement, and that's the document before you this evening. It's an easement that was never utilized, given the nursing home was built over it, so recommendation is to release the easement or approve the release of the easement.
Questions or comments?
I'll make a motion to approve the release of the easement.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Are there any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item B is discussion and possible action on the final plat of Riverside Preserve, a 36 lot plus or minus plus 4 outlots, pardon me, single-family residential subdivision. The 13-acre site located at 321 Riverside Drive is zoned R5 single-family residential with residential infill development overlay RIRO. The property owner applicant is Riverside 321 Partner LLC in CO Christian Hilvanka. Scott?
Again, this was reviewed by Plan Commission in July. The developer did submit for final plat approval, which means that the final plat is substantially consistent with the preliminary plat. The planner and consulting engineer have reviewed. Plan Commission was provided with recommendations with contingencies by the planner and the consulting engineer for certain items, technicalities to be met. Tim Barbeau received an updated final plat incorporating his comments that were presented to the Plan Commission, as well as comments from the Wisconsin Department of Administration, which is a reviewing or approval authority. His surveyor has concluded that those comments that have been incorporated into the final plat and has forwarded a recommendation based on that review, village board approval of the final plat. One other thing the Plan Commission did include in its recommendation, as noted in my staff report, was that a note be placed on the final plat indicating that lands to the south of the development is owned by Waukesha County with hunting permitted on the property at the time of the recording of the plat. My understanding is that was a request of one of the Plan Commissioners at the meeting that the commission incorporated into its recommendation for board approval. So that is something you can accept, or you don't have to accept that part for any approvals.
Questions or comments from the board?
If I could just,
Yeah.
with final plat approval, that doesn't mean yet that the developer can start selling. There are still development agreement requirements that have to be made, and there's details within that development agreement as to what needs to be met before any sales of lots or issuance of permits can occur. So this is a final plat formality. This doesn't change anything that's wrapped into the development agreement.
Yes, Bob.
Is, and I guess the question is going to Mark. Mark, in light of some of Dan's comments, is there any concern with what's in this document versus the lack of communication that has taken place already?
So as long as the plat is substantially the same as what you approved originally, which is the preliminary plat, and meets all the other technical requirements, you basically have an obligation to approve it as it's presented. The issue that Dan mentioned this evening, though, is definitely something that we can take up as part of enforcement of the terms of the development agreement. One of the things that we say in there is that we've got the right to inspect the public infrastructure to know that it's being done in accordance with the approved plans and village requirements. We can't do that if we don't know when they're going to be out there, so our engineer can be out there to check that. So that's a direct issue under the terms of the development agreement that I'm sure Dan will be taking up with them. So,
Any other comments or questions?
Scott, since I wasn't at that meeting, can you give us some background in terms of why they were concerned that we had to indicate the county property being to the south? I mean,
That's a good question. I wasn't at that meeting either, so I'll defer to Jeff.
Well, the biggest concern was that people that are buying the properties in that development know that there is hunting there, because some people don't like living close to maybe hunting grounds. Plus, they also wanted to let everybody know that that is a county-owned property, and the village has no legal jurisdiction over that as to how it's used. And here again, it has to deal with the properties that are being sold in that subdivision. Because there are people that park, from what was mentioned, was there were people that did park on that road and then go in there and hunt.
so Mark, if we tag that on, what's the legal effect in terms of the developer selling those properties? Is there some kind of a disclosure that has to be made as part of selling each lot, or what's the effect of that?
When you buy a piece of property, you get a title insurance policy which identifies the documents that are recorded with the Register of Deeds that relate to your property. This plat will then appear as one of those documents for anyone buying one of these lots. So in a perfect world, if somebody actually looks at their title policy and then takes the time to actually look at the documents referenced therein, including the notes on the plat, they would be on notice of the fact that this is occurring. So does it have any regulatory effect on behalf of the village? No. But if someone comes in and gets up at citizen comments and says, you know, I heard gunshots the other morning and on the property adjacent to mine or the subdivision adjacent to mine, and why do you allow this to occur? You can say, well, we put a restriction on this plat when it was approved, identified any potential purchasers of the fact that this exists, and they could then probably expect to have the, I guess, circumstances related to hunting occurring near to them. So it's really more of a matter of putting people on notice, again, if they take the time to actually read the documents.
So there's no burden on the developer to say, have a little asterisk or a caveat at the bottom of their sales literature of saying, oh, by the way.
No. I mean, we've done that sometimes with regard to, you know, where there's situations of high groundwater, is to say that the developer needs to notify the potential property owners of that fact, because it could affect their basement placement and what they may need to do in terms of mitigation, you know, to try and prevent the water from getting into their basement. That's an example, but most of the time there aren't such restrictions that are required to be disclosed by the developer. Again, this is buyer beware. Look at the documents, you know, related to your purchase.
Okay.
I'm not well versed on this topic, but I believe per the state, you have to be 100 yards or more away from a residence in order to hunt. So I think that
There are restrictions having to do with proximity for discharging firearms and bows and those kind of things, although there's some limitations on our ability to place that restriction because of requirements the state has done to preempt our authority on some of those issues. So, but you're right, there are some limitations.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
Just one comment. On the final plat, there is a note with regard to outlots and the maintenance responsibilities of the outlots, and it does refer to a homeowners association being created, so that's a document yet to be created or provided to us. So with regard to stormwater ponds on the outlots, that will be a responsibility of a to-be-created HOA.
Okay. So the HOA is part of the documents. That was my question in terms of were they going to have one? I couldn't remember.
Yeah, and I questioned Tim Barbeau on that, and he pointed to the final plat with one of the notes on page 2, I think it is, that has that language in there, which I looked at, and I'm like, oh yeah, there it is, so.
Okay. All right.
The actual terms of that is something that's between the developer, who's usually the initiator of that, and the property owners that are purchasing. Right. So the village doesn't get involved with drafting that or approving it. Yeah.
Any other comments? If not, do I have a motion?
After spending how many years on this property, I'm going to make a motion to approve the final plat for 321 Riverside Drive.
Second, Gergen.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, item C, discussion and possible action on possible allocation of Lehman Park funds to funds capital improvements at Piper Park. And we have Nick here tonight from the Park and Rec, and Bob will handle this.
It's very loose.
It's better than it was before.
All right. Well, hi, everyone. Just wanted to kind of start by sharing an update on village parks and the status of a couple different projects and items we have. Starting with a Lehman Park recap and fund update. Lehman Park and the fund there were created in 2015 with the intention to develop a revenue stream to help fund improvements at other village parks in the future. And we've had a very successful first 8 years. So since 2015, we've completed many capital projects, approximately $400,000 worth, including replacing all 3 piers we have there, receiving a Wisconsin DNR recreational boating facilities grant for 50% of the cost to replace the launch, the parking lot, and add lighting there. We've replaced the underground gas or fuel lines, the point of sale system, the roof, furnace and AC unit, and just recently painted the exterior. We do have a couple remaining capital projects there, including the balcony, deck, and rubber roof. We attempted to bid that project 3 times this year, unsuccessfully the first 2. The last time we had 2 bids, one of which was incomplete and one of which was over budget. So we'll be rebidding that this fall for construction next spring. And then windows when needed, approximately 2025. Not in working order right now, but just one of the few things that remain on our capital project list. Just status of our loan, we have a 20-year fixed rate loan at 3.75% interest. So we have 12 years remaining and a current balance of $381,000. Looking at village capital park improvements across all of our parks, we've been looking for ways to advance the village park system and what amenities to add or update. And then specifically looking at Pfeffer Park or Triangle Park, whichever you may refer to it as. The 2023 Parks Village Capital budget had Pfeffer Park scheduled to replace the 5 event, is often how you refer to playground structures, how many different things you can do there, as well as the merry-go-round, utilizing the Village Park Improvement Fund. So that's a separate fund that we utilize for capital improvements at parks in the village. Pfeffer Park is an underutilized park with potential for a new atmosphere, but we're wondering how we grow it, and we believe we have a quality option to do so. We were approached by National Fitness Campaign for their product, the National Fitness Court, and they are in a current growth initiative to bring their product to communities through their process and the amount of support that they put towards that. We've so far gone through great measures to find funding for this project, including a Quartz grant in a fitness initiative for $50,000 and a community development block grant for ADA accessibility for $76,000. We're looking for $91,000 of internal funds, and I'd like to discuss why this project makes sense at Pfeffer Park. First of all, we're looking to provide free and equitable access to outdoor fitness. We would like to create an intergenerational experience for parents, grandparents, guardians, and kids to go to the park. Grandparents or those with the children can squeeze in a fitness workout while utilizing the new playground equipment for the kids. In our park and open space plan, we have a goal to increase our variety through the park system. We have strong support and funding recommendation from the Parks and Recreation Joint Board. We'd like to bring a new amenity to an underutilized park. This will be the 4th fitness court of its kind in Wisconsin, but the 1st in Waukesha County. It has strong proximity to the downtown, lakefront, library, school district, WCTC, and in a very walkable area of the village. There's potential to bring fitness classes or partnerships there, and street parking is available on 2 sides of the park. Our proposed funding for these projects would be that the Pfeffer Park playground equipment, which is already approved for spending this year, comes from the Village Park Improvement Fund, but then the National Fitness Court to be funded through the Lehman Fund. A little bit more about the project. Page 3 of your documents I provided shows a site plan of where the fitness court would go. It's actually about 40 feet by 40 feet is what we're proposing for a little bit more ADA access. And it would go about 45 feet from the playground area. And we've worked really hard with them to secure that location. They generally prefer to see it larger, a little bit more separation from the playground area. And then we have sidewalk extending to Main Street. That's kind of under a safety light at the park, but very close proximity to allow a parent or guardian to do or participate in the fitness area, while kids could be at the playground. It would also keep a large amount of green space at this size park for passive recreation or other park goers that are interested in doing that. The next few pages show a little bit more of what the fitness court actually looks like and the 7 different areas. So the fitness court itself, they pride themselves in being able to do a 7-minute workout. So through their mobile app, it has 7 stations for a minute each, and it includes a core station, squat station, a push, lunge, pull, agility, and bend station. So again, in the packet shows people using those areas, shows some of the ADA accessibility, and both in the app, but also the equipment itself is set up to be modified for your fitness abilities. So as you get stronger or more capable, you can modify those to make the exercises more challenging. Yeah, I think that would be helpful to help you understand the fitness equipment a little bit. So I did send Scott a few links.
Real quick, Nick, does it have to be blue? Because it looks like one of these pictures has it as green.
I think that might have been an earlier model. I think they are currently on the blue style is what I've seen for all of their recent documents. There is a little bit of a narrative here that I don't have memorized.
Hi, I'm Mitch Benacki, founder of the National Fitness Campaign. The National Fitness Campaign was founded in 1979 when we opened the first fitness court. Redesigned for the 21st century, the fitness court is the world's best outdoor gym. Our 7-movement, 7-minute system allows you to use your own body weight to get the perfect workout. Easy or hard, it will work for you. Our goal is to build healthy communities by making outdoor fitness an essential part of people's lives, so that each day is better than the last. Now more than ever before, it is vital that we move fitness outdoors to remain safe, healthy, and strong.
Michiganders, as soon as we can, we go outside, which is one of the reasons why the fitness court was such an attraction to us. What impressed us most was their basic philosophy that they want to provide world-class fitness for free. Truly, anyone can use it, no matter what your age is, no matter what your physical fitness level is, no matter what your skills are. It is very adaptable.
Thousands of certified ambassadors will be trained to deliver classes, challenges, and clinics as part of our National Fitness Campaign. New programs are bringing students outdoors across America. The Fitness Court mobile app is your gateway to enroll in these programs. Simply scan the new digital wall with your phone to access a library of free workouts designed to optimize your experience on Fitness Court. Learn the moves and take challenges as we dig deep to create impact for our partners across America. This year, we are thrilled to introduce Fitness Court Public Art. Cities have the opportunity to select a local artist to design their fitness court using the power of the arts and fitness outdoors in iconic public spaces. We're proud to have helped cities of all sizes raise millions of dollars from respected sponsors to support free fitness. Wherever fitness is a priority, you can find a fitness court. We're partnering with large cities using urban movement data to map the best locations for healthy infrastructure. We're bringing fitness courts to within 10 minutes of population centers everywhere.
They provide these wraparound services that, from a city's perspective, that's what you want in a partner like this. You want it to come presented to you on a silver platter with a bow tied around it. They're one of the best partners, I think, that I personally have ever worked with.
We serve almost 1.2 million members across Michigan. And this partnership really is an opportunity for us to bring scalable, free health and wellness opportunities to our community. So I would actually invite cities and organizations, big and small, to explore the opportunity to invest in fitness courts. To be very honest with you, the feedback from different municipalities and different communities has been very positive.
We're committed to raise $150 million to bring the campaign to 1,000 cities and schools, building the largest fitness movement in the world. Join us. Let's make world-class fitness free.
So that certainly explains what the project or product is a little bit better. However, I think part of the reason we have the proposal for Peffer Park is a little bit different. That shows maybe San Francisco or maybe fitness areas throughout the country that aren't necessarily what Wisconsinites are looking for. Peffer Park, it's not the busiest park, but it has great proximity, and I think it would allow people to go there and achieve some of their fitness goals for free. You don't have to pay a gym membership, and it removes some of those barriers while still improving and adding something new to that location. I don't know if you had anything else, Bob?
Yeah, the other thing I want to add in regard to Peffer Park is that the location of this fitness court allows us to still have a lot of green space. So we can still have people throwing the ball around, doing what they need to do. We can still do a skating rink if we want to do it on the green area during the winter. It allows us to do it. The footprint overall is a small footprint that you're going to see in here. And you know, some of the comparisons that you saw on here where they're showing out in a wide open area, there was one where it was in an area where there are trees, which is going to be more similar to what we have. So it's going to be visible, but not real visible. So we're not trying to create a Muscle Beach. We're trying to create a place where people can come and do a 7-minute exercise and watch their kids if they want to at the same time, to utilize a beautiful little park that we have that right now is totally underutilized. And do it in a way that we're using Lehman Park funds. We're not using direct taxpayer funding. And Nick's going to be going over that information also. So and again, when we look at our park and open space plan, these are the type of things that we're trying to provide to the overall community, things that are different from what we have right now, that we believe are going to be a great addition to the community.
I got two questions. Well, one more of a statement. Taking away the disappointment that we are losing the merry-go-round, because that's the last true piece of park equipment that has injured me many times as a child. So sad to see that go. And second, were there any dissenters of this idea on the Park and Rec board? And if so, what were the opinions?
There was not.
Okay.
So we discussed the product, we watched the video, we did kind of a virtual tour through it of each of the different stations where they show some of the workouts. Everyone was in favor of it, and that was prior to securing additional funding. So at that point, we had the $50,000, I don't know if we had the $50,000 quartz grant at that point, but we had at least ideas for seeking funding. And after we secured the CDBG funds and the value of those, which we weren't really sure that we would receive. It was an out-of-cycle proposal, so they had already heard all of their 2023 applications, and we were still able to receive those funds. So once they received those, they were all in favor of it, and that's how we got here tonight. Was we had created this funding plan, and this is with their recommendation to move forward.
I know the placement of it and the site plan looked like there was some additional landscaping around it, right?
So there's a little bit of landscaping between the fitness court and the playground, and that's, the fitness courts are designed for 14 and up, and they generally propose 150 feet between the fitness court and a playground area. And with their concessions of distance, they were able to feel better about some sort of landscape. So we don't have that final what that is, but some sort of something small, knee or thigh high that creates a barrier, but also something you can see over. If you're a parent with a little kid, that you could probably jump over and
Is there any lighting alteration planned to illuminate because I know it is right on that one random pole that's in the middle of the park, but is there any other lighting proposed to be added that the neighbors may complain about?
No other proposed lighting at this point.
One other thing I want to mention, one of the 4 locations in the state of Wisconsin is in beautiful Juneau, Wisconsin. A nice little farm town to the northwest of here. Went up there in May to check it out. It had been installed for between 1 and 2 years. It's been in one of their parks up there, and I checked it out, just wondering how it was going to wear during the winter and things like that. And I walked away being very impressed with how it looked, and you know, that was probably the final deciding point in my mind that this was a good idea once I went through that. And I brought back pictures and shared that with the Park and Rec Board.
I really like this idea. Have you thought, was it brought up about having a sponsorship for this at all?
So I did reach out to 3 or 4 businesses seeking additional funding. That was prior to the grant funding, and it wasn't really met with interest. So after receiving the Quartz grant, Quartz is an insurance company, so they did have a few businesses or business areas that they were not interested in having an additional sponsor of a different brand. So we did reach out to a few businesses, but we were not able to land any additional dollars.
So did they not want any other insurers or any other healthcare or what?
Correct.
Both?
Certain of both. So
Okay.
no other insurance and only certain healthcare providers.
The one thing I also want to mention is that the CDBG, you know, getting a grant to $76,000 with a contingency that could take it up to $86,000. The largest grant we've ever gotten before was what, 20,000?
I
For
think
the
we
park
got,
system?
on the city side, I think we got 26 or 27
Okay,
for the
okay.
sports complex, and we just had 15 for Lakefront.
Yeah, and it was interesting to hear the comments. In fact, from one of the one of the members of the board is a former mayor of Waukesha, and he said, "Well, if this works out well, this is something the city of Waukesha should be doing too."
I have a few questions. I think it's great that we're looking at improvements for this park in particular. If anybody's been by, it certainly is in need of a little love and attention. And I think it's wonderful that we've been able to balance the green space, which I understand is quite popular with neighbors in the area. In terms of increasing usage of the park, do we have any data on how successful these fitness courts have been elsewhere with increasing usage?
Specific data from the company I don't have. I did speak with the Parks and Recreation Director in Janesville. That's one of the other 3 locations. They have solid attendance. She actually would choose a new location if she could. So they put this at a park right on their bus line, thinking high traffic, high use. And she's actually been disappointed, I think, because the high traffic means a lot of eyes on you while you work out. So as I was explaining our proposal of a little bit smaller park, but easily accessible, intergenerational with the playground, she loved the idea. She thought that would certainly be something that's in favor, and you know, something for me, having 2 small kids, I can certainly understand and appreciate the ability to do something for myself while they're
parks are boring for grown-ups. With that increased usage, will there come a point where we need to provide bathroom facilities? Is that an issue?
I don't think so. You know, the park doesn't currently have it. I don't expect the stays to all of a sudden extend to, say, 45 minutes or an hour. I suppose your bathroom use could be unpredictable, but I don't expect that we would necessarily need that at this time.
Good. My last question is, what's happening with that back wall? Is somebody going to design a mural for that?
When that came up, I'm like, I know this question.
Sorry.
I would love it if they did, except there is a like $15,000 fee if you have free art in order to get it on.
So what does it look like without art?
Without art, it's still a sharp, that blue design, and then we would have the National Fitness Court would have their logo, Quartz would have their logo, but then we would also have the Village of Pewaukee and the Parks and Recreation logo.
And that's not facing or even near any residences on that side, is it?
It would kind of face the point of the park.
Right. Just because I can imagine that being kind of an unattractive thing to look out on.
No. And I can tell you the one in Juneau had I think that package that you were describing, and it's kind of like you had to walk up to it to really see what the
Gotcha.
symbols were. So it
Gotcha.
wasn't, something that was really obtrusive, I guess.
My last annoying question is, how does maintenance work for something like this?
So they have said there's not much maintenance to do.
It's Hollywood.
They've continued to improve the product, change materials to make it more durable, even in cold weather situations. You saw a bunch of Michigan people on there, and then one of the other locations they also referenced. I guess this was he was from Chicago, the staff that I was speaking with, but his weather adjacent for us is Buffalo.
Oh, great.
So
They
that's
get way
what
more
he was
snow.
associating Midwest with, and snow and what you may face. But they've already given some information about maintenance and what you can do in winter. Don't use shovels. Yes, you can use leaf blowers, things like that. Don't use salt.
I'm assuming you guys would, because it is in a tree-filled area, I'm assuming your typical lawn care staff would also run a leaf blower through there.
Yeah, I mean, we would certainly need to create a plan. We wouldn't want anything to be occurring that's shortening the lifespan of the purchase. So certainly something we would want to be thinking about in that plan.
Thank you. That's helpful information.
Can we go back to the branding that's on there? How big are these logos going to be on there?
I would have to. I don't think the logos are meant to be very big. They're more off to, I believe it's the left-hand side when you're facing the back wall. And of course, all these pictures are on the front.
In general, it doesn't look like a very tall wall to begin with.
I think they showed them in that wall art design, where it maybe had the different colored people. I think they're more meant to be probably
That's fine.
Yeah.
2 feet by 2 feet, something.
I just shared the Juneau example, and again, they're very relatively small in what they're showing, so.
Kelly?
I had a lot of the same questions that Chris actually had. So I guess I'm just not completely sold on it. I guess for a $91,000 commitment, when we really don't know what the usability of it is going to be. I know it's coming out of funds that we have from Lehman Park. I think the idea of it sounds good, but I think it's a lot of money to spend in hopes that people are going to use it. Have we surveyed community members or asked people in the area if it's something that they would like to see? I mean, I know you say, you don't have to have a gym membership. Well, in the winter, you probably still do. Again, I don't want to say that I don't like the idea or anything like that. It's just, have we really dove into those numbers to see what that usability factor is going to be, and if it's going to be money really well spent?
Community survey, no. This has been relatively short order to approach this. We got started in March and we weren't really sure of the exact route or if the funding. If this was us paying in full, I wouldn't have proposed it. When we were working with the National Fitness Campaign staff and we were going over proposals and locations, there was significant conversation about where is it in the community, what is population density, and when we came up with the proposal, they dove into it much deeper than probably I could have with data-based, and they were certainly convinced on the location and what they have. Now, it is their product.
I think the
and they
location is
understand how
perfect for
to
all of
use
our
it.
parks. That location I agree with if we're going to do it. I think it's a good location.
Yeah. Short answer, how many people do I necessarily expect? I don't have that answer today. I do believe it would satisfy, the park system in a number of ways in the community, and some people don't have the opportunity to have that winter fitness membership either way. And Wisconsinites don't have a problem, going outside in further than maybe some other people. your March to November, you throw on a hat and a sweatshirt, and when you're being active, it's much more tolerable.
Do people use these in the winter? Have you?
I mean,
did you
people
talk to
use
Juno,
all
or
sorts
do
of
you-
stuff.
It was in May.
It was in May when you
Yeah.
went, but I don't know if you talked, if anyone talked to them to see what.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, there's things that surprise me every day. When I grew up, I remember shoveling off our driveway to play basketball in the middle of winter, and that was part of if I wanted to play, that was how we did it. I think it's all what the individual finds tolerable or enjoyable, and knowing that it's cleared off and you're looking to be there 7 or 15 minutes or whatever your fitness goals are, I think there's an opportunity to certainly use it more than, say, summer.
Yeah, and I can, I'll be honest, back in May, prior to doing the visit, I probably was looking at it the same way you were. Based off of the conversations that took place with the fitness court people, based off of the visit to the Juno site, I ended up going, no, this makes complete sense. And I personally think it's a good spend. Not going to be a user myself, but I think.
Come on, Bob, that's not the attitude to have.
I have to walk all the way from my car. But it just, again, it is, I'm not the age group that necessarily is would make use of this. I see it as being something that's unique to the parks. I see a park and rec professionals, and I see the Park and Rec board who spend a lot of time looking at different options, suggesting that this is a really good idea, and that's and so I'm completely in favor of this.
I've seen some other similar type things to this, but not from this particular company. And when I've seen them in other places, people are actually utilizing them. They're usually things like this that use your body's own force and resistance and things like that. So,
would it be? This is kind of like the Cadillac of those, right? I mean, this is the better one of at least the ones we saw.
Yeah, I really like it. I in general, I wouldn't say I'm the biggest outdoor fitness fan, but presented this option, I liked it a lot more than other pieces. So when I see them along a trail, one piece, and then you go 100 yards and there's another piece, I'm not as wild about those.
Mm-hmm.
When I worked in Greendale, I'd go for a walk at lunch, and I came across one, and it was literally a calf stretch. And I thought, why do you need $1,500 or whatever this piece was for a calf stretch? Like literally any wall or maybe a light forward lunge will do it. So those types I'm not so wild about. This is a small space where it's a body weight exercise. You don't need formal training. There's not really a whole lot to be intimidated by. The QR code in the app walks you directly through it. There's modifications as you get stronger or more fit. You can take those adaptations or modifications and utilize them to continue to challenge yourself. And it's a very sharp looking piece. At Shorewood, they had a similar style with a softer surface and a lot of moving that almost looks similar to a gym, but it didn't have the appeal that this does. I think this just looks much nicer, and it's a really, really nice product.
Go ahead.
Sorry, and there is a public hearing scheduled for this?
So this is our next step, and then Plan Commission would be next week?
Next Thursday, yes. Yeah, so this, it's before the board in large part because of the financing components and support with that. And then it does require conditional use through the Plan Commission as well. So that is scheduled for the Plan Commission meeting next Thursday. And to your point, there is a public hearing as part of that conditional use.
Okay. So if neighbors want to provide input or have concerns, they would be able to present that information to you?
Yeah. Anybody within 300 feet of the park has been notified by mail and notice in the paper as well.
I mean, the idea behind Lehman Park was to fund improvements within the park system, and Nick and the board, you guys have done a tremendous job with what you've had available. But I mean, it's, denying that some of our parks have started to get a little antiquated, this one especially. So to see improvements in a park that is very much in the center of a neighborhood, that does have a good line of sight, it does have the possibility to be so much more. The fact that it won't be funded by necessarily directly taxpayer funds, I think that's what the whole goal of this was to start providing amenities regardless of to how many people we see go through the door in year 1, year 2, but just to have that in the scope of amenities that Park and Rec and the village offers our residents. And it's not like something, as you said, it's not going to deteriorate in 1 year where now you're going to, it's going to be a constant cost to us to provide this amenity. I think it's something that's worth having out there to give our residents. And this is exactly what Lehman Park was designed to do. So I'm for it.
Are there any other questions? Yes, Mark?
So I'm going to be the pebble in the shoe. Is the QR code, is there any fee associated with using that? Is it like a YouTube thing then that they get probably some dollars off the hits too?
I would assume.
Okay. Second, and as you know, this is public construction. Normally we got to bid something like this out, but park stuff is notorious for that not happening. So just have to throw that out there that technically that's the way this something like this should be done, but it's proprietary. And I get the fact that with most playground stuff, this is the way it ends up doing. It's a turnkey thing that you have a contract with that vendor and you do it. So just for the sake of the record. Third thing is, my recollection as far as the Lehman Park Fund is that's an enterprise fund of the village, correct, Scott?
Correct.
Means that it operates independently from the balance of the budget. If fund was created originally, there was donations made by the Lehman family and some other gifts I think that were made as part of that.
Yes, and those are segregated as part of the reserves.
So you need to make sure that those funds are not utilized for this purpose. And I remember the discussion at the time that this was created that actually trustees were concerned that we would have to subsidize the Lehman Park development, and now it's actually going to be the reverse. I'm not sure that there is language that says that the Lehman Park funds can be utilized for other parks. I haven't gone back and looked at that, but just, this would be taking a step outside of just having a self-sustaining fund for the operation of that one park, and then utilizing it for developing another park. So if that's a route that the board wants to go in, I think you probably need to think about a policy about when you're going to consider doing this kind of thing going down the way. Because it becomes easy to rely upon that for spending for other purposes. So just wanted to throw those things out there.
A large pebble.
I'm glad that you.
Usually is.
I'm glad that you mentioned that because I was going to say I thought that the way that the Lehman Park funding was set up was a little bit different. Trying to remember how we set that up and as to whether or not we could use it for that.
Yeah, and I could, so as Scott did provide the ordinance that was created as part of it, and it goes to describe the Lehman Park Fund. And the last item in that ordinance states that essentially this section that describes the park fund may be modified by the village board with not less than 2/3 majority of all members of the village board.
So then the idea would be you'd want to bring something back that would specifically take action to do that?
Well, and I assume that's what we were doing as part of this.
Tonight?
Tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, in terms of with the expenses, there is an explicit order and funding in the village code with regard to the Lehman Park expenses. So it has to pay the mortgage first, annual operating expenses, the payment in lieu of taxes to the village, capital improvement plan funding within the park itself. And then the last item is additional expenses may be paid from the Lehman Park Fund within the discretion of the Joint Park and Recreation Board, but ultimately the village board controls the purse over Lehman Park.
But the mortgage hasn't been paid off.
in terms of annual operating expenses. So the budget itself is sufficient to continue that, and I know Bob and Nick have worked with Kayla in terms of the capital planning, the fund balance, and reserves to continue that in plan going forward.
Yeah, Nick, if you want to go through that spreadsheet that's part of this, because we do cover what, in keeping 2 years' worth of mortgage in the bank, essentially.
Yeah, so it's my second last page spreadsheet. So just walking you through top to bottom. As of June 30th, the Lehman Fund had $263,604. As of end of '22, the Village Park Improvement Fund had $47,500. Looking just at Lehman Fund here, you see the $263,604. We are estimating our reserves to be $100,000. The mortgage payment is about $40,000, so 2 years of mortgage, 2 years of pilot taxes, and then another $6,000-ish or $8,000. We're holding $75,000 for the balcony project in 2024, which would leave us $88,604. We are expecting $25,000 of remaining profit in 2023, which would bring that up to $113,604. Taking that less than $90,000, $91,000 commitment would leave us with $23,604. Adding that $23,604 to the the expected end of year balance from above would leave us with $198,604.
Yeah, the 198,604, I'm trying to trace that back, where we're getting that. So you got the 23,604, so
if you add the
what
20,
are you adding back in?
if you take the 175, so the 100 of reserves and the $75,000 balcony project, and you add that 23,000, you would be at 198,604.
I see, okay. Got it.
Okay, so we're asking to pay for this fitness court. It still keeps $198,000 in the Lehman Fund. And again, $75,000 of that is budgeted for next year's balcony and roof. But we also keep $100,000 in there, which is essentially 2 years of mortgage, plus also that payment in lieu of property taxes that were the pilot fee, which we agreed to when we created this fund overall. We didn't want it to be a drag on village finances. We wanted to pay taxes as if it was a piece of private land. So we'll keep $198,000 in there. Again, there's no reason. This is continuing to be a very good year for us financially at Lehman. We expect that to continue.
Almost everything's been replaced on that building,
Correct.
hasn't it?
Correct.
We've
Yeah.
done
Yeah.
as many improvements as possible, except for that roofing area.
Well, and keep in mind, we were given $100,000 by the Lehman for the fund as a start. We have spent $400,000 in improvements that came out of this Lehman fund for piers, and other improvements that have been made. And granted, there was part of it was a state fund grant that we also received. But we've made $400,000 in improvements to that.
And the last page of your packet is actually the capital improvement schedule. So it shows what's due and when.
Yes, go ahead.
I have another question. It's unrelated to the budget. Did you happen to look at the app when you were taking a look at the fitness court?
I did not. No,
I just downloaded
Yeah,
that, and you can't.
So, I believe the app requires Wi-Fi in order to access the content. It's not downloadable content. And I don't know about how far the dead zone extends, but I know driving from the school to the library, like you're in a weird cave of no Wi-Fi access. So I just wonder if that's something that's been updated. It would be really good to know.
Wi-Fi or cellular?
I think she means cellular data,
Yeah, I would think.
not Wi-Fi, because it'd be outside.
But you're referring to that area of the village having.
So the app requires internet connection to be able to view the videos.
Right, whether Wi-Fi or cellular data.
Something. And it's also a pretty even split between 5-star reviews and 1 and 2-star reviews. That could be, some of those could be really old reviews, but it's just something that we might want to take a look at to make sure that the content's going to be effective and accessible.
Well, and I think it's a good point to actually check, and I know different people's health services can have different dead zones and things, but it might not be a bad idea to make sure that there is.
And
because when I drive through the village here,
Sure.
I lose everything for like a block or two till I get to Bulk Quick Trip. I'm in a dead zone, but that can just be my cell service.
I haven't had any problems, and I live in that neighborhood.
It widely varies per provider.
And I also don't believe that that's a deal breaker, because I think if you see a pull-up bar, you know how to do a pull-up. You have some, if you're going to do a fitness workout, I feel like, I agree, if we're gonna have amenities, we should have all that they promise. I agree with that, but I don't see it as a deal breaker in adding a fitness court, because if you're going to work out, you probably have some idea of how to work out.
I'm not saying it's a deal breaker. I'm just thinking of complaints that might come about.
And I can ask them, because I have to imagine we wouldn't be the first one to bridge that gap. So maybe I don't know if there's additional signage at the stations, and some of the stations are maybe more obvious than others. You know, your lunch station or your pull or push station might be more common sense than, say, your open area where you're doing core. So.
Yeah, the other thing I want to mention too, and again, I'll bring up the Juneau example. When you're looking at the back of the fitness center, which would be towards the point of the park, that's where you see the small logos and thing. But on the other side, on the fitness side of it, they do have descriptions of various exercises. So worst case scenario, if there's no connection, you still have the descriptions of the exercises that you're doing.
The original app reading.
Yes.
Just printed material. Okay, yes. Lovely.
Right. So Nick, if all this, kind of just goes through all the steps we've got to go through, is this something that you're looking to build out next spring, or what's the timeline on that?
This fall.
This fall, yeah.
Yeah. So with securing the funding, and they've really, it was kind of referenced in the video, but if you're not on the partner side of it, going through all these steps, they've been very good about checkpoints and timelines, and securing funding is a big one for us. So, if we get through tonight with a yes, that'll be a call I have with him tomorrow about next step is his plan commission and discussion next Thursday, but they're very aware of the timeline. The community development block grant was proposed as out of cycle for 2023, and that's part of what helped us secure the out of cycle funding. So we would have to get out concrete and hearing, but we would be targeting a potential October grand opening.
Okay. I would recommend before the plan commission, have the landscaping plan done, because there's probably at least one person I can think of, Jeff, that always kind of hangs on that. So.
Craig.
Not me. Not me.
He says he always knows one person.
Yeah, I know.
No, it's not me.
Any further questions or discussion? Would someone like to make a motion? That would be relating to going forward and approving the plans and the money being taken out of the Lehman Park Fund.
So it's the motion for both moving forward with the project and the funding of it, correct?
Yeah, that would be contingent on plan commission.
Right.
But we don't need to do any other kind of motion regarding the fund. Mark?
Well, the mention was made of the fact that the ordinance references that with village board approval that could be done, so I guess the motion would be for allowing for that approval, so.
Requires it
I mean, if you're gonna make some other modifications to that ordinance, that would be a separate step. You know, if you wanted to put more meat on the bones of, you know, how you're gonna decide whether to spend money out of that account other than for Lehman in the future, but that's not what's happening tonight. I don't see on here, though, that you're approving the contract. I assume there's a contract with these people. Are you anticipating bringing that back after planning commission then at the next meeting, or are you just expecting that this authorization would allow you to sign a contract?
That's what I was expecting.
I'll make a motion to allocate funds from the Lehman Park Fund for the capital improvements at Puffer Park, pending plan commission approval, and no further approval needed from the village board.
Money not to exceed 90,000 out of the Lehman Park Fund?
Not to exceed 91,000, I believe.
91,000, okay.
That doesn't have contingency in, but that is the parameters we plan to operate because the cost should be.
We'll go with 91,000 then.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second.
Could I
Any,
ask for consideration of amending that to have the agreement reviewed and approved by staff and village attorney? And if there are any issues, that it would be brought back to the village board for consideration.
Amendment agreed to.
is the second okay with that? Okay. Any further comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Sorry for all the questions.
Look forward to working on it. Discussion and possible action on bid award for bridge deck coating contracted services. Dan?
Yes. I don't have an exciting video. In fact, this isn't very exciting at all. No pebbles either. Some grit, maybe. So you saw this earlier this year. We hired Ayers to put together some technical specifications for putting some surface treatments on our 3 Pewaukee River bridges. We had 65,000 budgeted for this year. And so I did this by sending out some proposal requests to 3 firms. I got 2 responses back. Norcon Corporation, who I haven't worked with before, Farner Asphalt. I did reach out to one of the references that Norcon had in their response. Gentleman from Central Wisconsin DOT. And he said that he's worked with them many times on similar projects, and they're a good contractor that does quality work. So that's good enough for me. These 2 bids were pretty close. They're only off by $1,300. But I'm recommending that we go ahead with these polymer overlays on our bridges, hiring Norcon in a proposal. I had our standard terms and conditions of service that Mark wrote up for me a few years ago, that I've used many, many times. So that would be our contract. And their proposal was for $41,963. One other thing you should know is that as part of the proposal and the request, and a couple of conversations I had with the bidders, is that I was explicit in that they would be able to have full access to the full bridge deck when they're doing the work. In other words, they're going to be a full closure. I'm a rip the Band-Aid off guy. I'd rather have a lot of pain for one day instead of 70% pain for 3 days, which is what we'd have going on there. So there'll be some traffic controls, and it's the contractor's responsibility to set that up and make sure that that's meets standards. So, so the work would be scheduled for September, and each of those bridges will have a full detour going around them. I think the Clark Street and the Capitol ones aren't a big deal. More like the Oakton one would probably be the more problem one, but.
Because you can't detour them down Clark.
Yep, exactly. I even sent him a little map going, here's our problem here. Everybody's gonna come and they're gonna cut through Village Hall and go back around is what's gonna happen.
Or just make to you.
It says a 5-day duration, is that 5 days for all 3 bridges?
Yes.
Okay, so we're only anticipating basically a day bridge.
Yes. Yep.
Which fund does this come out of? I see it's on the capital improvements project list, but which fund does it come out of?
I think this is the capital projects, which would be levy supported, if I remember correctly. I didn't check this, I think it's capital projects.
Either did I, but I think that's correct.
Okay. Is that one, is that the one that had like the 1.2 million in it or something like that?
This would be
No, that's
part of our
infrastructure.
funds.
These are part of the borrowed funds, okay. Got it. So we have the money in hand already.
We'll be requesting disbursement of the state trust fund on September 8th.
Okay.
That ties into the whole refinancing of that bridge project.
Okay.
So by the time payment comes, the pay request will have the funds.
Oh, this part of the 620-some thousand that we do, okay, got it.
Any other questions or comments? If not, I'll look for a motion.
Motion to approve awarding the bridge deck contract to Norcon Corporation.
Second, Gergen.
Do we have a motion and a second?
You want to specify the dollar amount?
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, item F is proposal for engineering services, village bridge deck surface treatments.
I think that was the memo from prior.
Oh, that was just a memo? Okay, I'm sorry.
I have no F.
I was gonna say, it didn't look right on my thing, but.
But I have an E.
Okay, the next one will be discussion and possible action, appointment of a village board member to serve on the police union negotiating team. Met with Scott, we talked about the person that I would like to choose. He had some questions and I answered them, and talked to the trustee and she is willing to do it, so I would like to appoint Kelly to the union negotiating team. Craig has done it in the past, but after talking with Craig, he's pretty well booked up, as he said, and he would have preferred not to do it this year. So I asked Kelly if she would be interested, and she said she would, and there would be no issues with her taking time off. She didn't feel the boss would be a problem with that. So
Boss is
I would
really
like to appoint, like the board to appoint her as the liaison.
Motion to appoint Kelly Belt as the trustee representative for the police negotiation team.
Second, Rhodey.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Thank you, Kelly. Item 9 are citizen comments. There are nobody here that we can see. Item 10, closed session. The village board of the village of Pewaukee will enter in a closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 1985 1E for the purpose of deliberating and negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, specifically regarding fire and EMS contract with City of Pewaukee. I look for a motion to go into closed session.
Motion going to closed session.
Second, Roberts.
Did we skip 8F?
There's no way to.
There was.
Roll call vote, please.
Who seconded?
I did. There was no 8F.
Right.
That
There was
was a
none.
document from back in March.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was the original.
I screwed up.
Thanks.
But just oddly enough, was numbered the same position this meeting.
Thank you. Trustee Roberts?
Yes.
Trustee Grabowski?
Yes.
Trustee Gergen? Yes. Trustee Brody?
Yes.
Trustee Belt?
Yes.
Trustee Krasovich?
Yes.
President Knutson?
Yes, we are hereby in closed session, please, Judge Mike.
Oh, hold on.
Everybody turn your mics back on, please. No one's out there? Okay. All right, item 11 is possible action on fire EMS contract with City of Pewaukee. Do I have any motions?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the fire and EMS contract with the City of Pewaukee.
Robert, second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion is hereby carried. Item 12, adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? We are hereby adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah.